In this video, I decided to talk about something that bothers me to this day. Tokyo Ghoul is one of the best franchises I've read in my life, but unfortunately it was tarnished thanks to the animation studio period. The whole representation of why Kaneki's hair turned white is a nonsensical mess. With this video, I want to help you to understand the complexity of a situation like this. What you should take away from this video is the fact that Kaneki's hair is symbolic, has a great weight and symbolism in terms of story writing. In that instance, the first thing we're gonna talk about is mental progression. Between Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re, Kaneki's mental progression is the focal point of the story. If you've read Tokyo Ghoul or even if you watched the first season of the anime, you've seen the changes in Kaneki. One thing that is needed a lot of different times in mental progression is a physical representation for it, something that helps readers to understand these changes when it's taking place, especially if it's tragic. In Kaneki's case, it takes place with his hair. When you start off the story with Tokyo Ghoul, Kaneki is a innocent human. He has normal straight black hair that is the basis for his character. Even when he turned into a ghoul, he still has that black hair, and a lot of people are confused about that. Why didn't his hair change when he turned into a ghoul? When he was in that transitional period right at the beginning, that's because this is not showcasing mental progression. This is actually building the steps prior to it, taking the big dive into his sanity, which is kind of the acceptance of his ghoul side. It's the whole point of Kaneki's early character. When he goes through the torture scene with Jason, that is how it shows that his mind is completely broken, and how he's forced to accept that ghoul side that he's been suppressing for quite a bit. He knew that the only way that he will survive that situation is accepting that part. The way that everything goes down is almost like he cannibalized his whole self and accepted the fact that he was a thing that he didn't want to be. To showcase this massive change in his personality, his hair goes from straight black to completely white. This helps to relay the overall tone of the story, considering that through the torture scenes, a lot of mental periods in that beginning phase. There are a lot of checkered black and white tiles on the floor. That's the whole ordeal with Kaneki, that is considered in his head black and white, ghoul and human. And in Kaneki, this is obviously reference himself in a lot of different manners inside of his own head. So it's very important to understand that full mental progression. The phenomenon of sudden completely grey hair, also called Marie Antoinette syndrome in women and St. Thomas More syndrome in men, is a nocturnal aging phenomenon in both sexes. This condition is usually a consequence of physiological trauma that has led to a high level of stress. Many cases of this condition have been reported throughout history, but I will focus on the most famous, the case of Marie Antoinette and St. Thomas More. The case of St. Thomas More happened in modern age, when he noticed a sudden bleaching of his hair the night before he has beheaded on a Tower Hill, and the case of Queen Marie Antoinette of France. She appeared with her hair suddenly grey after learning of her sentence to the guillotine. The aging process alters many physical characteristics, the main one being the loss of natural hair color, turning them grey. This is a natural and gradual process, but there is a popular myth that all hair turns grey quickly, practically overnight. This myth is mainly inspired by the case of Marie Antoinette mentioned above. The syndrome has been questioned for many years, and many believe it to be just a myth. Scientists have already studied the subject and revealed that stress can cause grey hair, but can it happen as quickly as the myth supposes? This was the case with Kaneki. After all the suffering, pain, and fear, his hair changed in color, showing his mental instability at the time. Now that I've explained what the disease is, I can talk about the effect on Kaneki. It's the first massive shift in his character. However, regarding his hair, it actually shifts away from his hair color and into his kagune. So instead of just completely changing Kaneki's hair color constantly, it shifts into his Kakuja perspective, which is obviously the repercussion of cannibalizing other ghouls. What this Kakuja represents is also mental progression, to the point where he gets to a lot of different variations of Half-Kakuja. This is important because a lot of people don't understand the difference between a Half-Kakuja and a full Kakuja, as well as the traversal from Half-Kakuja Kaneki to Haise Sasaki. So, this is where the mental progression is poured into his Half-Kakuja. He has a couple of different masks, and you'll notice by the end of the story that it slowly completes itself. All the way up until the ending, he has somewhat of a fully completed Half-Kakuja Mask. If it wasn't for Hide and Arima, I don't think Kaneki would have come back from that Half-Kakuja status, and he would have been completely lost to his insanity. And like I said before, this reiterates his mental progression. It's no longer focusing on his hair color, but more so on the abrupt change in his Kagune abilities. Half-Kakuja becoming extremely wild and uncontrollable, and his mask becoming a lot more obscure and insane, driven to the point that is covering his face completely and he lost all sense of control. The reason why this is important is because in that Half-Kakuja state, at the peak of his insanity, he was also killed, or at least I should say, his memories were wiped completely by Arima, which leads me to Haise Sasaki. Think of this as a complete reset for Kaneki's character. A lot of people think Haise is a personality in the full grand scheme of things. Yes, but in reality it's more artificially created. It's not a personality that Kaneki himself has shifted into, nor did he create it. It's something that has been created for him, from an outside source. So, in some ways, you can say it's a personality, but it's not Kaneki. And Haise is shown with white hair with a little black on the top. As he discovers more about his true self, his hair darkens, like a reset in his character. On that time period, he doesn't know where it fits properly, and he's still lost in his own mind. So the whole Black Reaper Kaneki, a lot of people call it a savage personality. It's actually a more sadful personality, because he's a void of emotions. It's because of his memories, his personality is completely broken and skewered into so many individual pieces that he does not understand it. And when you think about it from that point of view, it's very sad. It's actually extremely scary not knowing who you are. And even the artificial personality of Haise saying that he was comfortable with going into his Black Reaper state is also a lie. Or at least artificial personality that he could not necessarily trust or even understand to such extent. But even so, he pushed forward, bringing him into another Half-Kakuja status, which leads me to Kaneki's official rebirth and his final mentally or white hair stage through the ending of the story. This is the Black Reaper Kaneki versus Arima for the final time. This fight with Arima will change him completely, this being the overall limit, the push that Kaneki needs to become a character that is worthy of ruling everything. This was Arima's true potential, his ultimate goal, the reason why he put so much time and effort into Kaneki, the reason why he fought him. Kaneki traversed over to the next level, overcome that Half-Kakuja, thanks to Arima, and helps him to relive and be reborn back into the story, as his original self at the end of Tokyo Ghoul, but way more experienced and more knowledgeable, and way more in control. And thus we go from Black Reaper Kaneki reborn into Whitehead Kaneki once again. Just to finish, I'd like to talk about a milestone that really marked me. The sex scene between Kaneki and Toka. After they start having sex, Kaneki begins to cry. Toka asks, "Why are you crying?" and he doesn't know why. These are tears of joy because finally, after all the suffering he's been through, he felt loved. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you understood all this communication that Sue Ishida is trying to show through Kaneki's hair and to demonstrate just how deep a character can be.